class, this is Alex Kramer. I think I told you in my first speech that I'm a vegan. So really, I get a lot of questions about being vegan, but one of the #1 questions I get is, if I don't eat meat, dairy, or eggs, what does it do I eat? So the short answer is that I eat any food that comes from plants. And I think if you think about what you eat in a day, you may realize that a lot of the foods you eat come from plants, and you may be taking, if there's anybody who asks, what do you eat if you don't eat meat, dairy, or eggs, is taking for granted how many foods we eat that aren't those foods. But today I'm going to show you how to prepare a food that is very common to vegan cuisine that may be a little different than other plant foods you're used to eating. And my object is to make a plant-based meal easier for you to try. Because I think a lot of people, when they ask, what do you eat as a vegan, they're wondering, what could eating vegan look like for them? So the food I'm going to show you how to make today is tofu. There's a lot of different ways to make tofu. It's very culinarily versatile. It takes the flavor and seasoning of anything, of the way you cook it, but you can use it in baked goods and as an egg replacer in smoothies. But today I'm just going to show you how to make it as a simple swap for any other protein food. You can use, the way I'm going to make tofu, you can use it on a sandwich, in a salad, in a stir fry. You can make it into bigger pieces and make it more of like a main dish with a starch and a vegetable on the side. But I'm just going to show you how to prepare it, and then it can be adapted to all those different meals. Tofu, on the surface, I'm going to take it out of the container right now. I use just a knife over the sink. And it's packed in water. This is the first weird part about it that's going to be unfamiliar for most people. So you got to take it out of the water. And at this point, it looks kind of white, jiggly, not very appetizing. It's just coagulated soy milk, which sounds gross, but it's no grosser than regular cheese, which is the same thing. And it's coagulated in a salt made with a calcium salt a lot of the times, which makes it a really good source of calcium. Not a really, it's got 15% of your daily value of calcium. And then it's also a good source of protein because it's made from soy milk. And soybeans are a great source of plant-based protein. So it's really wet. So what we want to do is squeeze out the water. And the way to do that is to use either dish towels or paper towels. And dish towels are a less wasteful option because, as you can see, I'm wrapping it in quite a few paper towels. And you're going to use a weight. You're going to place another board on top and then use a weight, either a book or a heavy bowl. I'm going to place that on top and let it sit for about an hour or so to squeeze out all the water. Now, we're not going to do that. We're just going to let this one sit and prepare it later. I have this device. This is a tofu press. I've had it for a couple years. And it's really valuable because it just squeezes out the tofu in the same way without all the towels and the mess. And it's just like, you know, a vise. So you just screw it down and it squeezes the tofu between these two plates. And you don't have to go through all that. It's much easier. So if you want to cook a lot of tofu, that's a good tool you can use. Now this has had the tofu squeezed out. It's extra firm tofu, so it's already been pressed. And for this recipe, I would recommend firm or extra firm tofu. But an extra step I like to do after I've pressed the tofu is, I think it comes out much better in the stir fry. We're going to stir fry it, and it comes out much better if it's very, very dry. So I take another paper towel and just pat it down. Get off any moisture that's on the surface. Now, I have some chopped garlic I'm going is here. Now I'm going to cut it into cubes, and I'm going to stir fry it on the stove. So just very quickly. Now tofu does not produce grease. If you cook a lot of meat, you're used to it kind of producing its own oil. Tofu needs to be cooked more like the way you would cook a vegetable. It doesn't have natural grease coming out of it. Like I mentioned, it's very low in fat. And I'm just cubing this tofu. You can cook it into a number of shapes. You can cook it into more like steak-like shapes or triangles, where you might have seen it in pad thai. But as I was saying, it doesn't produce oil, so you do need to stir fry it in a small amount of oil. I'm using grapeseed oil to start. It's very neutrally flavored. So I'm going to start it on high and just add, I only add like a teaspoon or so, and teaspoon to a tablespoon in a non-stick pan. Just going to let the oil heat up a little bit. I like using the non-stick pan because the tofu will stick pretty easily. I'm just spreading the oil around, and then I add my tofu. And you can also bake tofu, and in that case I would recommend marinating it first. But we're going to make a sauce after this has been done cooking on the stove. And we're going to add it at the end. So this is cooking. I'm going to make a sauce. So we're done with this oil. And the sauce I'm making is going to have a little soy sauce, very simple basic sauce for tofu. I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of soy sauce. I use shoyu soy sauce. I really like the flavor of that. You can try different soy sauces and see which flavors you like. I also add rice vinegar. This adds a little bit of just a sour taste. So we've got sweet, salty, brown sugar, or I like to use maple syrup.
Not too much.
Not too much, though. And then for a nice savory flavor, it's going to enhance the flavor and give it a sesame flavor, sesame oil, toasted sesame oil. And then I'm just going to whisk it all together. And that's our sauce. Really simple. Now, I'm going to add some garlic while this is cooking in the oil, too. I didn't add it at first because I didn't want it to burn. So this is cooking. And we'll just stir it around a little. And I'm going to show you now what it looks like on the stove. As you can see, there's not a lot of grease coming off. It's got just some oil, it's soaking up the oil and it's browning, but it's a lot different than cooking meat. And it's already becoming less goopy and wet. It's looking more firm and like meaty and delicious. We're going to let that cook for a few minutes, about 5 minutes or so. And once it's cooked a little bit longer, we're going to add our sauce. And then we're going to cook it in the sauce until we've just like kind of cooked off all of the liquid. So, like I said, once you've made all the tofu, you can put it in your salad. So put it as a salad topping, the way you would top a salad with like chicken. Or you can add it to a sandwich. I like to just pile it on a sandwich. It tastes almost like, you know, maybe like an egg salad sandwich. It's really delicious. And then, or you can add it to a stir fry. That's a really classic use of it. And you can swap out. I hope that once you learn to use this tofu and you try to use it, you can use it to swap out meat in other meals, and you can begin to start experimenting with eating plant-based meals. It's really good for your health because it's much lower in solid fats, which USDA recommends we reduce our intake of. And it's a good protein source as well. So, once this is done, you can see the sauce is starting to thicken and the water is starting to evaporate. And in just a few minutes, we'll be able to try it. Now, here's a nice piece. It's nice and firm. Not too much liquid coming out of it. Delicious. All right, thanks class. I hope that this cooking experiment goes well for you. And I'll see you in the next speech.